Who's ready to party?
Welcome to another episode of the RadCast, the only podcast that ever has or ever will exist. I'm, of course, your host, the ultimate radass, Jet Dade. I think you're going to love this week's show. Coming up, we've got Call It in the Back, we've got Jet Dade's Movie of the Week, and we have a new segment I like to call Rad or Ass. Call It in the Back right after this. Welcome to Call It in the Back, a segment where a fan calls in, asks a question, and I answer it to the best of my abilities. This week we've got Tom Robkins from Santa Fe. Tom, what do you got for me?
Jet Dade, what's up, man? I got a question for you. Why do you think Bruce Willis's career hasn't been as good since he went bald? Did his hair have some kind of magical powers to it? And just to prove my point, what's your favorite bald Bruce Willis movie?
Thank you for calling in. That's a great question. I would perhaps argue the point that most of Bruce Willis's career, he would be considered by most to have been bald or at the very least balding. Now, I know there is a distinction between bald and balding, but he definitely lacked hair in most of his most famous parts. Now, totally bald Bruce Willis, or as he'll further be known, TBBW. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that I've seen one of his movies. That's a tough one. I think the balding look gave him kind of a ruggedness. You know, of course, that was also in his younger years as well. So he was a peak action star. Of course, that was during his younger years as well. So he was still, peak physical condition as a younger man. I think that little bit of hair, I think it wouldn't say that it was magic in the traditional sense of, paranormal abilities. But I do think that there was a spark, some kind of a spark, when he had that little bit of a buzz. Now, my personal favorite role is, of course, Corbin Dallas in The Fifth Element, and it was going. There's no denying it. It was on its way out, but he had that little bit of hair, bleached it. It was a good look. Unfortunately, Tommy, I don't think I can answer your question about my favorite TBBW role. If the hair's gone, so is my interest. And there you have it. More RadCast after the break.
Switch on your lights tonight. Ooh, pumping on steel tonight. Gonna be fine, that's right. When you wanna watch a movie, you must refer to Jet Dade's Movie of the Week. Jet Dade's Movie of the Week. Jet Dade's Movie of the Week.
Event Horizon. Welcome back to the RadCast, and welcome to a segment called Rad or Ass. A segment where I've taken to social media to ask you, the listeners, to state your opinions on a given topic. Now, if you want your voice to be heard, go ahead and follow me on Twitter and or Instagram at @TheJetDade, and look out for the posts and the polls that I will be posting every week. This week, I asked you guys what you thought about Buc-ee's, the chain of comically large gas stations based out of Texas and found all over the southeastern United States. I asked you if you thought Buc-ee's was rad or if it was total ass. And you said Buc-ee's is rad. Now, I have to admit that I personally do agree with that statement. Buc-ee's is pretty rad. But just to play devil's advocate here for a minute, because this segment is all about looking at both sides of the issue here, okay? Why might someone think that Buc-ee's is ass? Well, it's big. You know, some people don't like that it takes up a lot of space. It's got a large concrete footprint. Not to mention it's pretty much entirely based around the consumption of fossil fuels. So if that's not your thing, I totally get it. I get it. But let's go beyond that. All right, what is Buc-ee's, really? I mean, sure, it's a gas station, but can you compare it to a Shell station, a BP? The store itself, is it a convenience store? Can you compare it to a 7-Eleven, a Circle K? I mean, based on the crowds alone, not to mention the selection of items that you have to go through, it can take a while, you know, to get in and out of there. Not to mention, I mean, they're not at every exit, you know. They're, to be honest, few and far between. So are they really convenient? Can they be considered a convenience store? I mean, you could make the argument that it's almost more like a Walmart or a Target, you know. They've got what's practically a food court. They've got home goods to buy. You could buy a grill at Buc-ee's. They've got apparel, you know, clothing items. And when you make that comparison, how does Buc-ee's stack up to a Walmart, a Target, a Publix? I think that shift of perspective can really, shed new light on the issue here. I mean, they definitely don't have the same selection of goods as those other, big box department stores. So if you're making that argument, I'm not saying it's right, but it's something to consider. Now, with all that said, I think there comes a point where, you can't see the forest for the trees if you're getting all into the minutia of why it's rad or why it's ass. And really, you just have to step back and say that, however you categorize this big, magnificent, beaver-faced beacon for weary travelers, there's one thing that can't be denied. You voted that Buc-ee's is rad, and now I'm here to confirm Buc-ee's is certified rad. More RadCast after the break. Welcome back to the RadCast. Hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. And sometimes I think we all let the little things get to us, get under our skin just a little bit. You know what I'm talking about. The things that come tomorrow, you won't even remember they happened, but in that moment, you let them affect your thoughts, your emotions. You let them run your life for that moment. Now, a lot of times, these moments come from the actions of others who, in your mind, seem to be doing something irrational. Seems like they almost did something to spite you, to make your life a little bit more difficult for seemingly no reason at all. Now, maybe sometimes that is the case, but I want you to think about it. Make your own rational decision on what's happened. First of all, can you change it? No, it's in the past. You ain't Doc Brown. You ain't Marty McFly. Second, can you think of any rational reason besides just messing with you that the person could have done what they've done? Is there anything going on in their life, any logical reason that if you were in their shoes, you would have done the same thing? And then now think about if they actually did it out of spite. Think about if there's ever been a time that you've done something out of spite. Were you in a good headspace? Probably not, right? You were already having a bad day. You were mad at someone or something else and took it out on just an innocent bystander, maybe, you know? Just a quick brick through the window, you know? Quick lead pipe to the knee, you know? Something that in the moment you didn't even think about, but probably ruined that person's day. And now that you've thought about that, you know that if this person actually acted out of spite towards you, they're not having a good day. They're not in a good headspace. They might not be having a good life, honestly. I mean, they must be in a bad place to just arbitrarily want to mess with someone's day. And if that's the case, what do they want? They just want to see a negative reaction out of you. They want to know that they've had an influence over something in their day, in their life, even if it's a negative influence, even if it creates a negative outcome for all parties involved. They just want to know that they had that power. Are you going to let them have that power? Are you going to let something so insignificant, something that you can't even change at this point, bother you? At the end of the day, their motives aren't important. Ball's in your court. It's your situation to handle now, and you're going to handle it however you handle it. But how bad is it really? You know? You still have a place to go sleep later at night? You still know when your next meal's coming? You know? I mean, worst comes to worst, just go home, throw on YouTube, and watch a video of a cat that thinks it's a dog because it was raised by him, and now it fetches. More RadCast after.
This is a show, and you'll never be the star. 'Cause she falls in love every night. Don't even know your name. They know it's right.
That's all I got for you this week. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, feel free to hit me up at the Jet Dade on Instagram and or Twitter. I have been your host, the ultimate radass, Jet Dade, signing off.
It's not a